Welcome to Advice for Grad Students. I'm your host, Phil Haun, and joined with me today is Kelly Greenhill. She's an associate professor of political science at Tufts University and a fellow alum of the MIT SSP program. As a reminder, the views expressed here today are our own, not necessarily reflective of that of any of our institutions. Kelly, welcome to Advice for Grad Students, and let's just get right into it. The subject, what do our grad students need to know about co-authorship and collaboration?
Well, Phil, I'm delighted to be back with you and to share thoughts about collaboration, co-authorship with graduate students. I've done a non-trivial amount of co-authorship and collaboration, sometimes contrary to the advice I've been given by more senior scholars, because there's a lot to be said for single authorship and producing one's own work. So everything that I'm about to say, keep in mind that to the extent that one can produce one's own work, sole authored work before at a minimum going on the market, there's a lot to be said for that. At the same time, there can be tremendous rewards and a variety of reasons to engage in co-authorship. And I also think, Phil, you can correct me if your experience is different, but since our time in graduate school, I feel like the field is becoming more tolerant or acceptant of co-authored work earlier in folks' careers. So my caveat or about single authorship may be less relevant to graduate students today than it was when we finished all those years ago. I'm saying before, it can be tremendously rewarding and a really great opportunity to learn from fellow scholars and to leverage differential expertise and differential experience to produce pieces of work that are, if you will, more than the sum of their parts. So I'd say the principal reason to engage in co-authorship and collaboration is if your collaborators can bring something to the table that you can't do yourself, or can bring something to the table that they can do better than you can do yourself. And when choosing collaborators, it's important, I think, to keep that criterion in mind, but also keeping in mind what kind of person one is in terms of work style, in terms of expectations for deliverables, in terms of general temperament, because in any given research enterprise, there are times when one has good days and one has bad days. And so making sure that one is working with partners where you're kind of as simpatico as can be the case, can be invaluable. Like in any relationship, they take work, and so choosing carefully. And again, this is not to say that some people are difficult and other people are easy, just that, like a marriage or a friendship, certain personality types work well together and others don't. And I've been extraordinarily lucky with my collaborators and my co-authors, all of whom have been terrific. Let's see, what else would I say in about choosing co-authors? The co-authorship and collaboration also can allow someone to take on bigger projects and more ambitious projects than one could reasonably do, as a single author or alone. And that's another major virtue of collaboration and co-authorship. Co-edited volumes is a kind of collaboration, and co-authorship is involved there. Co-edited volumes can also be incredibly rewarding, but they are also fraught with challenges because you have even more personalities and even more work styles and even more say competing ideas about deliverables operating at the same time. And your life often intervenes and makes it difficult for people to do what they intend to do. So before one embarks on a co-edited enterprise, one should think long and hard about the potential rewards versus the costs that are embedded in these enterprises. Here too, I've been extraordinarily lucky. So there's not some secret story here about, oh, what a mistake that I've done these. Only that they're always more work than one thinks they're going to be. One thinks, oh, more people, we'll divide up the work and it'll get done more easily and more quickly. And it just never works that way. So Phil, you're smiling because I know you've engaged in some of these projects as well. So I'll stop there for a minute and see if you have additional questions.
Well, I think you're spot on. The coercion book you did, I think, was a good example of adding value that you and Peter could not get to, but also so a collaboration, but also there was a co-authorship that introductory chapter that you had with Bob Art. So adding something that together. But yeah, sometimes those projects do take on a little bit more time. Can you talk a little bit about so I've had experience with co-authorship. I don't pick a project that if the co-author falls out, I can't complete. As one of my going in positions. But do you have other expectations? Let's talk about some co-authorship. I've done some edited, papers, articles co-authorship. Is that in somewhat different than larger projects for you?
I would say both yes and no, which is not a very satisfying answer, but I would say it's quite project dependent. In terms of the piece of data that you provided, you haven't taken on projects that you couldn't finish yourself. That's extraordinarily good advice that I should have probably taken myself or thought about before and hadn't. I guess I've been more/less strategic in my choices in that I have almost always, not universally, but almost always engaged in co-authorship and collaboration on projects that I couldn't do myself, or wouldn't probably do myself. So there's sometimes there's a question that bears answering, but I'm just not committed enough to it that I would do it myself, but I can work with other people who are interested in a piece of it as well, and then get the answer. So that being said, I suspect I had more false starts than you have because I haven't always chosen projects that if things fall apart, I could complete on my own. So that's quite smart. Yeah.
That intrigues me. Okay,
Yeah.
so there's two aspects here. One is you have a project where you feel like you need co-authorship. Maybe you've got a qualitative case and you'd really like to have some type of quantitative or survey data. You don't have the time or the skill, and so you're looking for somebody to team up with. Others is when those approach you with a project. So those are two different types of co-authorship. Do you have any insight into approaching either or both of those?
Well, sometimes it's about methods, but sometimes it's simply about subject matter expertise. And I'm a bit anal in this regard, is that I'm not very good at hiring, say, research assistants to go make me smart on a case. Usually I have to go dig deep myself, and I expect the same of my collaborators. So if it could be qualitative subject matter expertise where I simply don't know about another case or about a period of time as much as somebody else does. And so, or we both know, there have been collaborations where we both know a bit about it or a lot about a particular topic, but, I would refer back to the metaphor of the elephant, like I might know the rump of the elephant and someone else knows the trunk. And then it's not as much about methods or time, but about being able to leverage different aspects of expertise or knowledge on a particular case. Sometimes also I've found incredibly rewarding collaborations where I've had a co-author who is deeply interested in the same problem that I'm interested in, but just the very opportunity to deeply interact with this person or these people and have these really enriching brainstorming conversations. It'll often take my headspace or the collaboration or the project in places that I hadn't thought about. So that's not something that one can count on, but has been a really positive aspect of collaboration and co-authorship and co-editorship, and that's not exactly the answer to your question, but it's orthogonal. Yeah. Okay.
That's an answer to a better question. And so I have something with the time we have remaining. It's kind of a minor question as far as the quality of the work, but it is trying to head off issues. And one of them has to do with lead author credit
Mhm.
and how you view that, and how do you go about determining it and when, those kinds of questions.
It's a really good question. Historically, I believe, in every single project where I've co-edited and co-authored, we've gone in alpha order. And I don't think that works in all cases, and it certainly probably doesn't work in cases where the distribution of labor has been uneven. And I think you bring up an important point that people should figure that out early and discuss it often. And, as I said, sometimes life intervenes and things change. And so if there are reasons to reorder the order of authors, that collaborators should be frank with one another and not imagine that it's going to solve itself at the bitter end, because one doesn't want to sour relationships. That being said, I think I've been lucky, and the interactions with my collaborators have been such that alpha order has worked. There are some times when I've probably done more than some others, and could have been first author. I don't care. There are certainly other times when others have done more work than I have, and have ended up either in front of my name or behind my name. So alpha order has worked. As far as I know, I haven't fallen out with anyone over it. So
yeah, so we're about out of time, but
Yeah.
this shows my ignorance on the alpha order. Do you put an asterisk and an indication that it's alpha order, or how does that?
Well, it's very clear, right? So, Art and Greenhill, Krause, Andreas and Greenhill, so it could be the case, one could say it's statistically possible for alpha order also to reflect 100% input, but I think when people look at journal articles, alpha order suggests itself quite clearly if there are more than two authors, and if there are only two authors, then it could be alpha order, it could be contribution order. I guess I would also say it's worth noting, and there's probably an asterisk that bears that it should be added here. I'm a little unusual in academia in that I kind of do my thing, color outside the lines. There are surely people who care much more about making sure that if they should be a first author, they will be listed as first author. I don't care. I figure it all comes out in the wash and over the course of our careers. And by and large, I would also say, I've been lucky enough to be in collaborations where I think we're mostly, by and large, each pulling our weight. So alpha order makes as much sense as any other order.
All right, well, we probably spent too much time on that. I really
you can feel free to edit it out. This is just
oh no, that's
I
fine.
don't have a good answer here because I'm probably very I would like I may be somewhat unusual in this regard, but it's been alpha order so far, and I think without fail, and I don't think anybody's I can't remember there ever being an issue.
Well, that's great. Well, that should be the norm anyway. So great. I love the comments about co-authorship as a relationship, because that is clearly the case. That's all the time we have today. Thank you, Kelly, for being here with advice for grad students.
Thank you, Phil.